Welcome to the Tech Simple podcast. Independent insights into the latest AV technologies, as well as tips and best practices to optimize AV solutions for modern workplace and learning environments. Here are your hosts, David and Jonathan from Konnectus AV Consulting.
Welcome to another episode of the Tech Simple podcast. I'm Jonathan Cuthbertson, and as always, I'm joined by my good friend and colleague, David Allara. Welcome, David.
Hello there, Jonathan, and hello everyone again for another great episode. I'm really excited about this episode. Actually, it's a real sticking point, I think, in many projects. As you can attest to, Jonathan, we're actually going to be covering the importance of setting up an IT network, or networks, plural sometimes, depending on the situation, prior to getting your audio-visual systems or solutions in place or installed. So that is quite a big topic actually to get through. We'll do our best to do justice to it today on this short episode, but we do have an expert from Concept AV, which is one of the more well-known audio-visual integration firms in Australia, and the head of operations from that firm, Andrew Squillacioti. Now, Andrew, I firstly want to welcome you to the show. It's great to have you here and join us on this conversation about IT networks and the importance of setting them up prior to getting AV systems installed and configured. So welcome, mate.
Thank you, David. Hey, Jonathan. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. I guess I've known you for a while. I know your father very well. We go back a long way. Good Italian bloke, of course.
Yeah, very much so.
I've watched him with admiration and envy as he's built a business with yourself and your brother Josh and the rest of the team from humble beginnings, 10 plus years ago to what it is now, which is a thriving business in the audiovisual industry, specializing in commercial education, tertiary education, and corporate and government office fit-outs in particular, whether they be small, medium, large businesses, it doesn't matter. You seem to cover all areas and do justice every time. So I'm also very envious of the culture, the strong culture, almost like a family culture that's been developed at Concept AV. What are your feelings on that, Andrew? Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. We've it's something that Dad's always pushed for a long time to make sure that it's never felt too much like you need to work or you have to work. He's always wanted to make it feel like a place of enjoyment, and that's something that we've really pushed or tried to push at least. So I like to hope that it's a feeling out there. Yeah, I've got a lot of people that I've known for 10 plus years since I started who've been here longer than me, who've still in the business and still know all the family. Got to see a lot of them have their kids, start their family and start their journey. So it's been great to be a part of that with the team at Concept. It's important to us, and that's the main thing. You want to come to work to go home and spend it with your family. So we want to make sure our people who do come to work enjoy coming to work and enjoy even more going home and spending time with their families. So
that's extremely well put, and I couldn't agree more. I think ourselves at Konnectus, we've worked with the Concept AV team many times really over the years, and it's always been a successful outcome. The camaraderie on the project, no matter what state it's in, there's definitely a collaboration and a sense of we want to do what's right. We want to go that extra mile to give great outcomes for customers. And that kind of is the segue to what we're going to be talking about today. I mean, over the last 2-3 years especially, we've learnt how IT networks are essentially fundamental. They're the backbone of audiovisual systems these days. And spending time to get those right before the AV systems are implemented is really a non-negotiable step one. Jonathan, you can attest to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the years gone by, when we were delivering audiovisual systems, everything was proprietary. You were sending it over your audio and video and control all over proprietary cables that, the AV installer or integrator actually put in themselves. But these days, all of those signals are going over the network, and that means heavy involvement between AV consultants and integrators and client IT. And that's a big link that needs to be put together, or a bridge that needs to be built before you go and install. It's so critical now.
So, I mean, both of you, you spend and have spent many years on the front line, so to speak, working on projects during construction phase and design phase as well, but definitely during construction, implementation, configuration, spending time with IT departments, people client side working in IT departments that need to provide certain inputs and set up networks in certain ways. This is where I really like to maybe set up some of the issues for the audience and maybe frame the problems that you see or have seen in the past when maybe we don't follow best practice, when maybe we don't do things in the right order, when maybe things are forgotten about or steps are skipped. What can be some of the issues that you might typically see in that case? Jonathan, Andrew, take it away, either one of you.
I'm happy to go first, Andrew. Well, really, I mean, the biggest one is things just don't work, right? There's a blue cable that plugs into your device, but for that blue cable to actually do anything, a lot of configuration needs to happen in the invisible world of the IT land, in that black box. The problem is, until you plug that in, you don't really know whether it's going to work or not. And that's a key part of the problem.
And I guess from my side of things, and as operations, I deal with a lot of our technicians and our engineers who implement a lot of the issues and come across them all. And I think what I struggle with as somebody who works closely with them is actually seeing them spend a lot of time, sometimes going past the typical 8 hours, the feel that they need to get something accomplished from something that could be a simple understanding or a misstep in the network configuration that they've come to. So it's a struggle to keep the guys motivated and wanting to do the works further. That becomes an issue later with them, and with the drive to make sure, it should seem simple. As Jonathan said, it's usually used to be just a cable plugged straight into a TV and you're away you go. But now there's a million and one different ways to make a system happen, and it's making that as simple as possible for the client and the people who are dealing with the equipment to get it ready for the client.
Well, that's a great point about getting it ready. And this is one of the big problems, especially in the construction industry, and that's time. Time to actually deliver a project. AV as a trade comes in at the end, because we're installing electronics, and they're sensitive. So you can't install these things when a site is being painted or sanded, or you've got dust, because it's going to damage that equipment. So AV has a very small window to actually deploy, configure, and commission the systems right at the end of a project. And that time window is very small. Now, when you plug in that blue cable, if things don't work straight away, as you say, Andrew, you can spend a lot of time troubleshooting that issue and getting the network configured. Now, that's the biggest challenge. And then you end up opening day of your new office or your new classroom, and hey, everything is physically there. It looks beautiful, but it's not working because of these network configuration challenges. So that's definitely a big challenge, and it takes time to go through and do that configuration.
Yeah, especially like you said, the configuration of it all, and then it's about getting it ready for the user. When someone walks into their new room and they see a TV on the wall and they just want it to work, there's a bit of luxury in other trades where if something's not 100% finished, it can look enough to be finished, whereas in AV, if a TV doesn't turn on or if it doesn't work as you're planning on it, there's a lot of notion to go, why is this not working yet, or what's going on there? And it can be a real difficult conversation to have with the client on something that could be so simple to fix that you're not aware of at this point yet.
So shortly, we're going to be going through actually a 10-point checklist, which we use just to make sure that those IT networks optimized and planned early so that you can have, I guess, the AV configuration and setting going nice and smooth during construction. And we'll go through that one by one and go through all those 10 points in the checklist. But just so I'm understanding, and for those listening, it sounds like it's all about pre-planning. You've got to have time set aside early to pre-plan and get these networks optimized and configured to take whatever the specific AV systems that we're talking about onto the network, so they can be in turn optimized and deliver great end user experiences. And also from a support perspective, when you have the devices on those networks properly configured and optimized, we have the ability to improve our support, don't we? We can proactively, and the key word is proactively, monitor and see what's happening with the AV devices. If there are issues, we can potentially resolve them right there and there remotely before anyone is affected. We can manage firmware updates, security patches, all remotely. When you're in reactive mode, you don't have the ability to do all that. You find out about issues because someone tells you, and that's usually inconvenient for someone. And then you've got to spend time and money going to site, finding out what the problem is, and that's all a series of headaches, not to mention expensive in time and money. So
that's right, Dave.
Getting those networks is so crucial from a support perspective.
That's absolutely right. And on top of that, we're assuming that you can do that configuration and it's okay to work on the network. Touch wood, but the worst case scenario would actually be, well, the networks team turn around and say, well, no, we can't support this device or this design on the network at all. You've got to go back and redesign that.
Again. Yeah.
Let's start again. That's right.
Mm.
So that's why, even before you kind of get started on the design aspect, you need to understand, okay, well, what is the environment? Like, what kind of network environment is there? Is it even possible to put things on the network? Because that might actually influence the types of products or the types of systems you design with. Because if you know up front, oh, hey, I can't connect these things because the client security team say it's not allowed, well, you have to go down a complete different path. Yeah. And that's easy if you haven't done the design already. But that's very challenging if, next week you're just supposed to be handing over the project and you've purchased all of the equipment and you're there on site.
You've even installed it at some point as well, and you still got to work out what to do after that. So it becomes a very, very difficult task at that point.
So, I mean, have you seen that, Andrew, in your business, or maybe in colleagues at other businesses, or heard industry war stories where assumptions are made perhaps prematurely or incorrectly, or they're just assumptions, and we all know what happens when you make assumptions, and you go down a certain selection of equipment and design choices, and then when it does come to hypothetically connecting these systems to the network, it's impossible to actually make them work, or there's maybe roadblocks client side which you can't overcome, especially in large organizations. That could be the case. Any examples of that you might be able to share?
Definitely. There's one that comes to mind straight away. A client that we've had actually, and there was again, that word assumption was definitely undertaken on this project, and something that I think a lot of people may do quite regularly on projects is PoE with certain equipments, and a lot of equipments these days get sold without power supplies, without the use, and the vendor or the manufacturer assumes that you could just use PoE, so they don't even tell you that there's no power supplies anymore. And we've gone along that same assumption on the site, installed all the equipment, got it all ready to get our guys on the field and set up in, and found out that PoE wasn't enabled on any of the switches, and they were never going to allow PoE. And the same thing, security team were, nope, no PoE is allowed on this. So every piece of equipment that we had needed, not only did it need a power, either a PoE injector or a power supply, it also needed power to be run to each location at that point as well.
That's an electrical power outlet. Oh, my gosh.
As well. So it's It was an oversight. It was, as he said, an assumption. It was a very quick lessons learnt for us at that point to not do that one again and get that ticked off earlier on. But yeah, that was definitely one that sprung to mind quite quickly on something that's so simple and so I think regularly forgotten about. But yeah, you just plug it in and things come to life. But yeah, definitely got caught out before.
So the benefit for the people listening, what impact did that have on the project? What happened at that point?
Again, a few difficult conversations. It was a long-winded conversation where it started off with simple, just go tell the security team, can they just enable PoE to all the ports? That takes time. There's obviously a lot of clients these days are using third-party networks teams, so there's a 2 to 3 day turnaround on just a question. So by the time we heard back, the project had progressed and moved along, and timeline for us to commission the sites were getting shorter and shorter. We eventually went full circle. They came back to us with no, it's not going in. We can't enable it for whatever they had their security reasons for not allowing PoE. Might have been something like there wasn't enough power to support the amount of products that we wanted to use. And then continued on. We just sort of we had to wear the bullet at that point to go. We didn't ask the right question at the right time to then go, hey, well, this is a change from what the agreed upon scope was at the beginning. It was a pure assumption, and that's just something that we had to wear. We had to have those discussions with electricians and see where we needed to add in power. Fortunately enough, a lot of the locations were close enough to an existing power outlet that tapping off wasn't as problematic as running an extra data cable back to the rack. So that was a bit of a blessing in disguise. But it did get it was a lengthy progress, and I think that was the biggest cost out of all of it. Not so much buying new injectors or the power supplies, but the actual time in replacing and getting that information is a lot of time that it's just gone. It's not coming back. You're not getting that back. That's something that you just need to understand as a business that makes that mistake. You just got to take ownership of, put your hand up and go, that was a mistake. I'm not going to do that one again. So,
well, ownership, that's 100% admirable for any company, but I don't know any business, by the way, that has not made mistakes in whatever field they're in.
That's right.
That's just the nature of being in business. So the important thing is to learn and take action and move forward and improve. And again, that's what the 10-point kind of checklist that we're going to be going through shortly is all about, is to helping everyone listening learn and follow best practice. But why don't we, before we jump into that one, why don't we flip this and talk about some success stories? So when have we followed the 10-point checklist and, had the luxury of following the right steps and getting the right outcomes and attacking this nice and early and getting good planning in place and a close relationship with IT department to get everything set up to optimize the AV, implementation? Jono, Andrew, love to hear one from each of you.
Well, I might get in there quickly for you, Jono, because the one that I'd like, and the one I like to use, is the one that Jonathan and I actually got to work with quite closely with recently on. A project that we had in Sydney. We were fortunate enough to work with Konnectus on that one. And again, that same action of both being the consultant and the integrator being on the same wavelength, the same thought process, we're able to get in early with the questions, get our Microsoft Team accounts before we were even on site, starting with rough-in. So that just allowed our team to have the information readily available when they walked on site. There was something for them to do. It's quite easy that you've asked a question and it takes weeks for them to get the account details or the IP addresses, and then you get a lot of people just waiting to do work and wanting to do the work, but they can't. So having those questions, and again, that was the support across the board, it was the same question getting asked to the client, and they were able to push those questions quite quickly through, that we were able to have it early on in the piece. And from that point, there was minimal interactions from ourselves to actually get the systems up off the ground, because once it was connected in, everything had been able to be tested from the IT and prior to us actually going there and go, no, hey, what's going on here, or have you set these up? So that was wanted to get in there before Jonathan stole that one, but it was a recent example that definitely.
I'll have to think of another example now.
Surely you have many, Jono. Please tell me you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, on your point about, testing it out beforehand, I can think of a particular project where we were doing a command and control center.
Yep.
And in this command and control center, the video and audio AV distribution was AV over IP. It was like a network-based system. And this particular client didn't have any previous experience with those network-based AV over IP systems, specifically the multicast aspect of it. We were fortunate here because we really did follow best practice, and before we even did the design work and the project, we were able to do a proof of concept. And that proof of concept really was key to being able to make sure the project went smoothly. So in the proof of concept, we got some of the actual products and we got them on the network. We were working closely with their networks team, and we were able to kind of develop a set of settings that is unique to that client and their particular environment to support the AV over IP. So, there's the quality of service and the power over Ethernet, as you say, Andrew, some of the fast leave and other network protocols, and we were actually able to test that. So we then got a set document of these are the 10 different things that you need to configure, and then we deployed the actual system after that. And that made the deployment of that particular system run significantly smoother than if you were trying to figure out all of those items as you're deploying it.
On site, yeah.
And in fact, this particular client has now taken that design and applied it to other command and control centers within the organization as well. And they still use to this date that same list of configuration settings that we developed from the proof of concept.
But I think that is such a great example for you to use, and for those listening, because a lot of businesses, they don't do this just once. They do it multiple times in multiple locations, in multiple rooms and spaces, as you say. So if you can rinse and repeat, with some sort of a template, it just makes everything so much faster and less expensive in time, headaches, and of course costs. And that's the whole point, isn't it? You do it once in a proof of concept, for example, like you say, you get everything is sort of tweaked and perfected just as it needs to be for that particular situation or room or client or all of the above, and then you just replicate. And that's such an advantage right there. So great example. All right, well, why don't we move on to this famous 10-point checklist that I've been talking about? I think we might just, and it's not necessarily in this exact order, but it's close, and it's going to depend on every situation. But I suppose following, this checklist, kind of like baking a cake or a recipe to follow. If you hit all these things, you're 99 times out of 100 going to be on the right track. So the first step, network compatibility. So Jonathan, what do we mean by that?
Yeah, well, this is about protocols. It's about, things like, does it support a gigabit network? Does it support automatic IP addressing? Or, as Andrew says, PoE. These are kind of the base level protocols that need to be available. And sometimes they get taken for granted because you think that they exist. But it's really important to check these things. And it might be a very quick check, but that saves a lot of issues later by doing a small little check at the start rather than as you're deploying.
Cool. Next one, Andrew, bandwidth requirements. What does that mean to you?
I guess that's one of the, it's a real almost dark arty sort of words where you hear a lot of networky people talk about it. They say that, and a lot of day-to-day people will go, yeah, cool, that means something to somebody. It's basically just about from what I understand of it, and I could be totally off the mark here, but it's a traffic, it's the amount of communication and that goes through the cables, goes through the network that needs to be received and needs to be sent. So it's the transfer rates which affect the network throughout the system, throughout a network. Some devices are heavily bandwidth stringent on it, and some are very light, almost to the point where it's non-existent. So knowing what is going to be on there and what isn't, and how that would affect it all.
Yeah. Okay. So doing a bit of an audit up front for the solutions you're planning to put on the networks is important. Get the bandwidth, make sure the pipe's big enough, or what have you.
Yeah.
And then after that, we can look at the quality of service, or the QoS. Jonathan.
Yeah. So QoS is all about prioritization. It's saying, you know what, I have 5 different types of services running. One is live video, one is, people's phone calls, another is, people surfing the internet. And it's about saying, well, you know what? It's super important that my people's Teams calls don't drop out and the video just stops. So I'm going to put that at the top of the list. But you know what? If it takes a little bit longer for someone's web page to load, does it really matter? Not really. So I can put that further down the list. So QoS is all around, okay, these are all of the different services that I have, and let's prioritize that traffic to make sure the really important ones or the time critical ones have first priority and the not so important ones have less priority.
So in AV land, to give maybe a practical example, a command and control center, that would have pretty high QoS, I would have thought. Whereas
I think so.
That'd be right at the top.
Some digital signage in the employee breakout, maybe not so much.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Cool. All right. So number 4 in the checklist is firewall and security settings. Very important. Andrew, what's a quick explanation here?
Basically, it's protecting the client's network, protecting what information they want to receive in and what information they want to, I guess, get out of their network and go out into the wonderful world of the internet. So it's certain security measures or parameters that a network security team may have or will put in to prevent information being hacked. And as we all know, as we get very much more technology based, security on the network is such an important asset to not only a business but to people day to day. So it's a very high importance level these days, and it's only going to keep on developing to be more and more important. Hackers are finding new ways to do anything.
Well, so true. Maybe something that's highly relevant to this particular audience for the Tech Simple podcast when we're talking about workspace and meeting rooms and collaboration spaces and what have you. I mean, general video conferencing is prevalent. It's how we work. It's almost every meeting or session is a hybrid one these days. So, Jonathan, any specific tips around security that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so probably, I mean, these are basic, but I see them not addressed so frequently. And that is changing default passwords and usernames on your devices.
Right. Yeah.
That's a big one, because if people can get access to the network, then they can easily get access to the devices. And being audiovisual, microphones are listening, cameras are viewing, and that could be confidential information. So a very simple change username and passwords is such a big thing. And the other one is AV devices have lots of features, but we're not always using them all. So turn off the features that aren't being used, because every feature that's actually on or port that's open is a potential threat vector. So turn the ones off if you're not using them and make it less of an opportunity.
Oh, that's good. Very basic starter advice. I can see you nodding furiously there, Andrew, so clearly you agree.
Yeah.
Well, let's get on to number 5 on our checklist, IP addressing and DHCP. Over to you, Jono, for this one. I think it's your turn.
It's a round robin, is it? It's my go. So IP addressing, it's pretty, I mean, you might think it's very straightforward, and you know what, it is. But the key here is quantity of IP addresses. So often I find that, an IT department doesn't understand the sheer volume of AV devices that connect and the sheer volume of IP addresses that are needed. So they might create subnets that are quite small for AV devices and then very quickly run out of IP addresses. And all of a sudden now they have to rework their network architecture, which takes a lot of effort. So understanding the scope right now of how many devices and projecting into the future is going to save a lot of rework down the track.
Yeah, so that, I'm assuming, should be tackled as early as possible, isn't it? Because, it's not like your average IT department is sitting around twiddling their thumbs just waiting to work with you on this. They got a million other things pulling them in different directions. So the lead times to maybe get this all sorted out can vary, and they can sometimes be long, especially in smaller businesses where they just don't have the manpower or resourcing to take care of this. Would you agree?
Yeah, or if it's outsourced to a managed service provider as well, there's delays in communication, and it takes time.
Yeah.
Right. Great. So number 6 now, heading into the second half, port forwarding. What's that one, Andrew?
It's a simple enough of the fact that it's just an access into the system, into the network, to allow, if we're able to do, and not everyone has this opportunity or has this luxury, again, security reasons, so not everyone is comfortable with allowing access into the network separate from an external environment. But that just allows an opportunity that an external laptop, so say the engineer who may be setting up the system, can get in remotely and start looking into the equipment and start fault finding remotely or getting quicker access into the system. One of the biggest things that the AV industry has always had is its service area, and this just gives a quick response time, if it's able to be done, quick response time into saying, yes, there's an issue. How can we fix it? Is it a simple reboot of the system, or is it something more involved that we've got to get out there urgently to? So it just gives that opportunity to get out there quickly and give access into the system.
Yeah, well, time is of the essence, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I think the expectation, the people that I speak to more and more around this kind of technology is they expect it to work first time every time. So when it's not, or if it's not, it needs to be back up and running in lickety-split. So we need to have tools and ways to get that to happen. So, yeah, I think I know it's not always possible, as you mentioned, but when it can be made available or something to that effect, it definitely can improve the situation.
Yeah.
I was just going to make a comment. It's a lot quicker for your support consultant to make a change remotely when they're sitting at their desk than try and organize to have to come to site to make that same change when it might just be one button click.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Network segmentation is number 7 on our list. Jonathan?
Well, this has actually a bit of a combination of some of the points we've talked about already. So network segmentation is really talking about what's the best way to break up your network using VLANs and different subnets so that everything can work in harmony and work as fast as possible. But sometimes it's a good idea from a security perspective to isolate some of these devices where, you might put AV in a specific bucket or in a specific VLAN away from maybe some more confidential or business critical systems. So it's really just, let's have a look at the whole system. How is it segmented, and how is that going to impact the way that other devices work or need to talk to each other?
Fantastic. And VPN configuration is the next one on our list, number 8. Tell us about that one, Andrew.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that worked out pretty well with port forwarding being the one I got to speak to just before. So similar sort of aspect where VPN, it's allowing access remotely. It's allowing somebody who's not typically on the network to be on the network or be accessing to the AV equipment remotely and able to just get in there, see if there's something that's going on, support the client as quickly as possible. It's just about, it's virtually being where you need to be at a moment's notice. So it's about, again, the biggest thing with this is not everywhere this is going to be applicable and not everywhere this is going to be able to get done. But when it can be done, it is such an effective tool to support the client, the people who are even the engineers who may be deploying the solutions at the time. It's a very versatile tool. It gets people who could be on the other side of the world to access the systems and see if there's something that they can support with from the other end. So one of the biggest things you can always do is ask for support and ask for help in the AV industry. Someone's probably handled the issue that you're dealing with or facing, and having somebody be able to VPN in and see if they can fix it remotely is such a useful tool.
I suppose it's not just yourself. That's also, maybe there's a manufacturer problem and all of a sudden you need the expert from the US or the expert from Europe or somewhere from Asia to actually have a look at the system to provide additional manufacturer support.
Yeah, and even I guess these days a lot of coding is done remotely and can be done across the world. We have a few coders who are not from the state that we work with, and it allows them an opportunity to start working on their code remotely and not having to get them on a plane on a red-eye flight up the next day to try and fix something. They can fix it from, like you said, from their home with all their monitors to see what's going on and get a better solution that way.
Yeah. I think there's more and more talk here about support, isn't there? And that's more to come, including number 9, which is firmware updates.
Well, firmware updates, it's a real key one. And there's kind of 2 key aspects. First off is there a process in place to update firmware? So this is really an operational question about, or how do you actually get firmware to be updated on all your devices? And you might be thinking, well, AV, who cares about firmware updates? Well, firmware updates do 2 key things for your AV devices. One, security patches. So when security vulnerabilities are found, firmware updates is how they're plugged. And the other one is AV devices now are really software driven. So firmware updates give you new features, and the new features can enhance your staff's productivity. So think about, how do I actually do the firmware updates? Do I do them myself? Do I get an external contractor? Are they done automatically? But having a plan and a methodology in place is key here.
Yep, so important to get that ongoing benefit, because those features just keep coming down the pipeline, often for free. So you can buy a product in month 1 and keep getting additional gains and benefits in the months and years following. It's so important. Right, we finally arrived to the end, number 10. And this one's for you, Andrew. Network monitoring and troubleshooting. Obviously, Concept AV provides a fantastic service. You have a service division in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And why would this be important for you to serve your customers and give the best experience possible?
Yeah. So network monitoring, it's a great tool. Again, it's something that not everyone may be comfortable with having, because obviously it means there may be another party that's looking over the system. However, it is something that can be very, very useful for everyone involved. It gives you sort of an overall eye on what is happening with the system. So it lets you take a little peek into the window of, okay, everything is acting as normal. You can have all the green lights saying everything's good to go, or you might get a flashing red one saying, hey, this needs attention. It allows a few of the vendors, they all have their different versions of them. So if you're a Crestron house, if you're a QSC house, they have their versions of it that we can, as Concept has implemented in before, and allows our service team to have that quick reaction times, even sometimes before clients may even know they've got an issue, to go, hey, we've done a reboot, here's a service, or don't even tell them. They walk in on the Monday morning, everything's alive and well, and like you said, Dave, before, people just want things to work and they want it to work as expected. So it allows that opportunity to go, system's good to go, nothing to worry about, go on with your day. And sometimes it can be a bit of a double-handed thing, but if you don't hear from us, that can be a good thing, because everything's working smoothly. So
yeah, it's like an insurance policy. You're there just making sure everything is working as it should.
Up and running.
Yeah, that's correct. Cool. Well, thanks, guys, for running us through that checklist. Now, we're going to make available, actually, this checklist in a written form. It'll be available as a download on the Konnectus website and the Concept AV website. So do go and check that out. As a bonus, we're also be going to putting together a video where we'll go into this in a little bit more detail, and that will help, I think, those that are interested, grasp some of these points and these ideas. As I say, in more detail, they can potentially implement a lot of this stuff themselves. If you need any help, always go to an AV professional or an IT network professional. But I think that's a really useful tool to go along with the checklist. So we'll be putting that together again for download from the Konnectus website and the Concept AV website. All right, so that brings us to the end. Jonathan, we also have another promotion, while we're talking about that, which is a free network readiness check for AV running at the moment. Do you want to just give a quick plug for that?
Sure. Network readiness, we do a few different things. We kind of meet with the customer or the client. We review their existing AV solutions and the aspirations for the future. We look at their existing networks and what their plans are. We actually apply that 10-point checklist that we just spoke about and generate a score based on the results of it. And we don't just give you a score. We'll actually say, okay, well, these are the things that you need to address, and this is how you would address them. So really, it's a great tool to be able to get on the front foot, to be able to say, okay, well, this is where I currently stand. This is what I need to do to get to X point, which is my goal. And that can kind of influence what you do with AV. As I said at kind of the top of this discussion, do I even want the AV on my network or not? So a great tool to be able to inform decisions.
Yeah, thanks, John. I think it's a good starting point, isn't it? You can take advantage of that free assessment, and then you'll know where your gaps are potentially and what you need to focus on, so that when you do implement your AV solution, you've got everything checked off on the list, and you will hopefully have a smooth ride all the way through. Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you, Andrew, so much for joining us on this episode. We'll have to have you on again because
thank you for having me.
You do have a lot of experience, and together we've also got a lot of unified experience, Konnectus and Concept AV, which we really should talk about a bit more, I think. So.
Yes, for sure. No, but thank you for having me today, guys, and glad I could hopefully shed some light to someone out there to have a think a bit harder about the IT and what it actually does mean to an implementation and to a customer. So yeah, thank you again. Thank you for having me.
It's been great to chat with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And just finally, for those that want to know more about Concept AV, your website, Andrew, conceptav.net.au, if I'm not mistaken.
That's it. Yep. .net.au. Yep.
LinkedIn as well. You've got a LinkedIn profile, as do...
Yes, LinkedIn.
The company has a LinkedIn profile, I think. Where else can we find out about Concept AV?
It's again, someone I got to lean on my marketing person, so she'll probably be yelling at me that I've done it all wrong. But I believe we have a Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, we're on the socials, so I'm sure you'll find us. You give us a Google search, we'll pop up somewhere. We'll be at the top of the list, hopefully. So
perfect. All right. Well, thanks, guys, and look forward to having you again on a future episode. But I think this has been really useful. Just talking about the importance of getting your IT networks ready for AV system implementation. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Tech Simple podcast. To like, share, or discover more episodes, head over to Spotify. If you'd like to talk to us about AV in your workplace or learning environment, book an initial discovery call with David or Jonathan at konnectus.com.au. And remember,
Tech Simple!